And we've got 2 o'clock on the clock.
Okay, then we will go ahead and get started if that's okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. We're thrilled that you're joining us today to hear from our guest from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. We're going to go ahead and start with introductions, and I believe that Mr. Hines and Ms. Gibbons are going to introduce our guest.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just going to do it. I didn't know both of us was going to do it, so I'll just go ahead and do it.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Today we have with us an award-winning officer. He is an 18-year veteran of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. He has served in numerous high-profile units, including SWAT. He's been a police academy instructor and still is a police academy instructor, instructing in the areas of firearms, defensive tactics, and de-escalation of force. He is currently assigned to the recruiting and community engagement unit, and he leads those units in the police department right now. He also advocates for officers as president of the Ethical Society of Police, and he is a proud member of the North and South Tech Advisory Board. It is our great pleasure, Captain Givens and I, it is our great pleasure to introduce our friend and our brother, Sergeant Donnell Walters from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department.
Thank you, Sarge, Captain. Hello to everyone. Let me say that first. As the good retired sergeant has said, I am currently a sergeant with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, and I've been with the police department now for 18 years. I've been with recruiting now for a little bit over 3 years, and it's still growing. I also am involved heavily in community engagement. And today I'm pretty much going to talk about preparing yourself to be a police officer. Because preparation to be a police officer starts now. It's going to start with not only physical. That means, hey, if you're not running, you're not being active, it's going to be difficult once you get to the academy. So you want to start now doing your push-ups, doing your sit-ups, eating right, getting out, exercising, jumping jacks, pull-ups, and running, because you want to be not only mentally prepared, but physically prepared. And that physical preparation, I always say you got at least 2 years to get there. And once you get that physical preparation going, your mental preparation is simply this. Just like now, you're in school, you're learning. You're going to be learning in the academy. Only difference is you're learning now for free. You're not being paid to learn. When you get to the academy, you'll actually get a check with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department to sit in a class, and for pretty much 1,200 hours. 1,200 hours over 6 months. There'll be a total of about 16 exams. 16 exams that you're only allowed to only fail 2. But do not let that discourage you, because if you fail an exam, you will be able to make up the exam. So do not get discouraged. If you're not a test taker, this is the time to start preparing yourself. This is the time to start preparing yourself to take tests. Some of you are thinking, oh man, I thought I was going to get out of school and be done with school. Well, the police academy and any academy across the region, you're going right back to school. But again, this time you're going to be paid. Once you get done with the academy, then as a commissioned police officer, there's many branches you can go into after you've done at least 3 years of patrol. That 3 years of patrol is what we consider to be being in one of the area stations, in one of the police cars, where you'll answer your 911 calls. You'll deal with domestics. You'll deal with car accidents. You'll deal with missing dogs. You'll deal with, believe it or not, we get the call for the occasional cat in the tree. So it's those type of calls that you deal with as a patrol officer. Once you've completed your 3 years, guess what? It's a wide open spectrum. You can try out for the SWAT team. You can try out for one of our narcotics unit. You could try out for traffic. There's the aviation unit. There's the Metro Link. We have K9. We also have detective bureaus. You could be a homicide detective. You could be a sex crime detective. Some of you may even be skilled in computers. So we have a cyber crimes unit. We have our intelligence unit. So we have so many different branches that you can branch off into that's part of the law enforcement side. So now let me move on from the law enforcement side, because all of you pretty much know there's so many different branches to the law enforcement side. But there's also our, I like to say, our comrades that aren't all police officers. There's the park rangers. The park rangers are awesome. Here's what I like about the park rangers. They're in the park all day. They get to be outside all day long. And believe it or not, they do possess a few powers that we have in law enforcement. Only difference is they're in our parks and our recreation centers. So if you're not 100% ready to become a police officer, you can be a park ranger. There's also the sheriff's department. Our sheriff's department mainly does a lot of the civil and criminal court side, where they are in charge of the chambers of the judges and the courtrooms. So, but guess what? They also have a few powers that we have, only theirs is within the courts building. Then there's also our city marshals. Our city marshals work at a lot of our city buildings, such as City Hall. We have some that work at headquarters, as well as the city municipal court building. So they too have a few powers where they can kind of somewhat like a police officer. But guess what? Those are all stepping stones to becoming police officers. If at the age of 21, you must be 21 to apply. If at the age of 21, you're not 100% sure you want to be a police officer, there's also the dispatchers. Our dispatchers are awesome. They're our lifeline because they get the 911 call. They actually get the person on the phone telling them what's going on, and then they dispatch it to us. They're concerned with us on the street. If it's a pursuit of some sort, they're just as amped up as that officer who is in pursuit of a vehicle. So it is a very important job, and it can be stressful. So if you're one that can handle stress, dispatching may be a start. We've had quite a few dispatchers that have left dispatching after about 5 or 6 years dispatching and come over to the law enforcement side. And with that, they bring a little bit of knowledge in a different entity. We also have quite a few civilian jobs within the police department. There's our IT tech center. Right now, there's a young lady, her name is, and I'm going to put it out there, her name is Officer Corman Major. Corman Major started off as one of our IT tech civilians, and she knew the computers like the back of her hand. When she came to the academy, I was still there. And when I couldn't pull up something, I'd be like, Corman, I need you to come up here and do your IT stuff. And now she's a police officer, and she was a prime candidate for our new body worn cameras because the computers. So her knowledge of IT crossed over to when she became a police officer. We have our civilians, and I will say this, and I say this with the utmost excitement. Our civilians are our backbone. Civilians in any law enforcement job is the backbone. They are the ones who do a lot of behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see. They feel the connection to law enforcement just as much as that police officer. So these are all entities that you can think about. You don't necessarily have to say, hey, I want to be in law enforcement, but I don't want to be a police officer. Well, here's some options that you can go to. Police work is also a stepping stone for those of you to decide one day you want to go to FBI, you want to go to DEA, you want to go to one of those government entity jobs. I have a few friends that are recruiters for the FBI, and they love the fact that an individual has come from a police department and now wants to go federal. I have two individuals that I mentored in the academy. One is DEA and the other one is FBI. And I feel proud because I taught them in the academy, and for them to go to that next level is just great. Because, you know, it kind of feel like a big brother saying, hey, my little brothers surpassed me and they have moved on. So when you look at law enforcement, you have to look at the broad spectrum and don't limit yourself to just thinking, I want to be a police, I want to be in law enforcement. And quite often people say, but I don't want to be a police officer. And, you know, without knowing these different entities, they go the opposite direction, but they have a passion for law enforcement. My background, honestly, believe it or not, my background is in the medical field. I was a physical therapy assistant before I became a police officer. So when I started working with the volunteering at a camp for kids, I met a few police officers, and those police officers pretty much gave me the motivation to want to do the job. And I always tell this story. When I came on, I pretty much came on needing a job. I graduated the academy. I did my time did about a year on the street. I liked the job. Then I was still looking, I'm gonna go to the federal level. I kept thinking about it. And the more work I did on the street, my like now became a love. I love what I do. I love the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. And it's mainly because I grew up in the city. I grew up in one of our pretty rough neighborhoods. Sergeant Hines would say, if I gave the address, it was called Cooking with You. He'll tell you it was always something going on in my neighborhood when I was a kid. And I grew up with it. And I grew up around the developments and the changes in my neighborhood. And so when I was given the opportunity to choose the area I want to work in, I went back to my old neighborhood. Who is the best person to police a neighborhood than someone that grew up in the neighborhood? So, and I still to this day like to get out and be in the community. I do. I love the community. One thing that I challenge recruits in the academy, because everyone says you're going to be asked this question: why do you want to be a police officer? The common answer is, I want to make a change. And I say, okay. So my challenge to each one of you deciding to be a police officer, think about why you want to be a police officer and what change will you personally bring to any agency you go to, because everyone has the same answer. I want to make a change. I want to be out in the neighborhood. But what can you personally, with your personalities, look at yourself and ask yourself, can I police me if I had to stop me? How would you do that? And you would find inside of you what type of police officer you can be or you would be. If it's not a police officer, park ranger. Not a park ranger, city marshal. Not a city marshal, sheriff. Not a sheriff, an IT tech. Not an IT tech, administrative assistant. Not administrative, legal division. Oh yeah, we do have a legal division. Believe it or not, we have currently 2 lawyers, I believe, that are police officers. They're lawyers. They got their law degree from being on the police department, on the job. Because guess what we have? Tuition reimbursement. Want to go to school? Hey, do it here. You can go to school, so you don't have to stop. I have a group of officers, female officers especially, and the captain and Sergeant Hines got to meet the sheroes. And these were a group of female officers and commanders who are police officers, but they have other interests outside of the police department. Some of them have started their own business, but they're still police officers. So some of them are mothers. So it just shows you anybody can be a police officer. Anybody can be a police officer. But I always say it takes a special person to be a good police officer. And that's what we need, is more of the good police officer. So if you are that good person, inside and out, hey, then this is where you want to be. This is where you definitely want to be. And we're here to help you develop and mold. I always put him on Front Street. Hines has been my mentor even after he left the department. So he knows when he calls me, I never say no. I'll rearrange a schedule. I'll cancel something. I'll move something, because he's still, to this day, he mentors me. And I mentor others to this day. Like I said, I got a friend, one of the officers of the FBI. I still mentor him. So if there's any questions, feel free, ask.
There are a lot of questions, Sergeant Walters.
Like-
Mr. Hines, I saw you in the chat. Would you like to read them, or would you like for me to?
Like 200 questions. So Sally, you may have more control over that. I'm trying to get back in.
Oh,
You
okay.
start
I
asking?
have them. I have them right here. So I'll go ahead and start asking, if that's okay.
That's right.
Sergeant Walters, one of the first things you talked about was the police academy and some of the exams that the students have to take.
Yes.
And so one of the students asked, what are the exams?
So you have an exam. Your exam. So the classes that you'll have in the academy, there'll be firearms. The firearms, you'll get over roughly about 100+ hours of knowledge of the gun, how to shoot the gun, how to clean the gun. And there is a qualification course that you have to go through, because we would like our officers to be proficient with a firearm, with defensive tactics, certain things involving the baton, the mace, the taser, all of those. We have to make sure that you have knowledge on when to use them and when not to use them. Domestic violence. There's a domestic violence exam. Believe it or not, we got to say, hey, do you know how to go in and actually defuse two individuals who technically love each other but just having a disagreement? There's going to be a juvenile exam. Juvenile is one of the classes where you're learning about juvenile law. And in that exam, you want to know how do you handle someone in your age bracket or younger. There will also be a law exam. I will tell you right now, and let me prepare each and every last one of you, no matter what academy you go to, anywhere in the country, law will dry out your eyelids. But we have to have it. So you have to know certain laws that are relevant today. So those are just an example of those exams. Now, one thing I can say about the exams, they're not going to give you anything they have not covered in class. If you go to class every day, 18 years ago when I sat in the academy, I barely studied. That was me, because I was at every class. I never missed a day. So I kept notes. And a lot of the things, after I took my first my first exam, I noticed, hey, I remember this in class. I remember this in class. So right now, if you're a junior, you start practicing your senior year. Perfect attendance. If you're at class or on that Zoom every day, that instructor can't give you anything that hasn't been covered. And that's how the exams work. That's how the exams work. And guess what? They're all multiple choice, because I'm no longer at the academy.
Okay, so still related to the police academy, how many students do you think you recruit throughout the year?
Whoa. I talk to, wow. I mean, honestly, I don't have an actual number, because a lot of times I'll talk to them, they'll go through the testing process, and they'll get into the academy, and it's not until when I come in and I go, hey, I remember you, I recruited you, or I recruited you. So on average, a year, it varies. It varies.
And that's fine. One student is wondering what the badge means to you.
The badge to me, The badge to me is a symbol. It's a symbol of accomplishment. When I graduated the academy and I was given my badge, it was like receiving a trophy. I've played sports and I've been part of a losing team and I've been part of a winning team. And that badge is my trophy. I accomplished something, me. And every day I put on that badge, it's like putting on my trophy. I earned this badge and I'm going to keep it and nobody's going to take it. And so it was funny, but when I got promoted to sergeant and I got a different badge, I was like, "Well, can I keep my first badge? It's mine. I earned it, so the badge is, again, just my everyday reminder of my sense of accomplishment.
Okay. Sergeant Walters, is there any unit that you would highly recommend to be in?
Of course, I'm kind of biased towards SWAT and anything tactical because, SWAT is an excellent unit. But let me say this, and this is for all of the hardworking officers. Patrol is the best place to be when it comes to law enforcement. Specialized units are great. Okay, specialized units are great, and I'll put this in perspective of this. If you was in an honors class, you're expected to get A's every day, every single day, every single test you're expected to pass. That's a specialized unit. That is a specialized unit. You're expected to excel above and beyond every day. As a patrol officer, it's your pace. Some days you'll come to work and be like, I just don't feel like doing a whole lot today. And guess what? As long as you're visible, answer your radio calls, you could drive around all day. I remember as a patrol officer, I used to just go sit in the park, in the car during the spring and just let the windows down and relax. Had no calls, nothing to really do. This is one of those jobs that you can do that in. So patrol is great. Specialized units are also great. It just depends on what you personally like.
Okay. So with all that's going on with police officers and civilians, what do you think would be a good way to reform police departments and hold them accountable for things they do, both good and bad?
Let me address the bad. The bad is it's like when anything, it's we got to hold anybody and everybody responsible for their actions. If someone does something bad, honestly, truly, excuses are not acceptable. We all have bad days. I'm a police officer. Do I have bad days? Yes. But when I put on my uniform and I get in the car, sometimes I got to push my bad day to the back seat because I'm dealing with somebody else's bad day. So I can't take out on them my bad day because they're having a bad day. So I think the biggest thing that we need to start doing is holding officers accountable. I chose this job. The job didn't choose me. I always, when I'm with recruits, I ask them, how many of them ever received a draft letter? And I know I'm talking to some of you that may not understand what a draft letter is. Many moons ago, in the military, it wasn't voluntarily. You got drafted. You got a letter in the mail that says you're going to this branch of the military. No ifs, ands, buts about it. If you don't show up, you went to jail. Law enforcement does not draft. We recruit, but we do not draft. So those that come in voluntarily and fill out an application, they want to be there. So since you want to be here, act like you want to be here. That means be presentable, because every time I put on my uniform and I go to work, I'm representing every officer before me, Captain Gibbons, Sergeant Hines, and every officer after me, as well as every officer that's working right now. Because when they see me in uniform, they see all of police, not just me as a police officer.
Okay, thank you. Many more questions. So would you recommend being a police officer and why?
I would recommend doing what your heart tells you to do. That's what I would do. Do I love what I do? Yes, to the utmost. Do I think the job is made for everybody? No. And I think that's what has happened is that we have some officers that they've been in their family's been in law enforcement forever. So they get into law enforcement because their family was in law enforcement. So that was the wrong reason. So when I say it comes to law enforcement, let it be your true calling. Research, let it be your true calling. That's why I would say, hey, why do you want to be a police officer? And how can you make a change? Don't say I want to be a police officer because my dad was a police officer, my uncle was a police officer. I joined the military because my family went to the military. And I stood there at 18 years old and I asked myself, why did I join the military? And it was because I call myself following in someone's footsteps. Over time, did it develop me? Yes, but the initial was not of my own, what I wanted to do. So when I say it comes to law enforcement, look at it, analyze it, do your research, and ask yourself, do you really have what it takes to be a police officer?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so what are some things you look for when you are recruiting students?
Excellent personality, good conversation, good listening skills, and just a personable person, because you have to be personable as a police officer. You do. You have to have the ability to talk to any and everybody. I talk to everybody. I've been told, Sarge, why do you ask so many questions of people? Why not? I learned that I met a guy who was a mascot for IHOP. Did you know that IHOP hired mascots? And to find out that he walked around in a pancake suit, on a daily basis was like, wow, okay. But if I had not talked to him, I would not have that story to share with you. A lot of our unhoused individuals that you see out on the side asking for money, I talk to them. Some of them are lawyers. Some of them are actually doctors, mechanics. They have families. But if we don't talk to them, you'll never know that. So the quality that I look for people, those that can talk to me and ask me questions. And there's no stupid question at all. It's just how you think and how you process. So never be afraid to ask questions, and don't ever think your question is stupid. It just means, hey, you look at it different. Because believe it or not, your question that you're thinking, somebody else is thinking the same question, but they're afraid to ask. But you're not. Those that ask me questions, love it. I love it. Asking questions is great. I saw an officer move through the ranks on this police department because he was not afraid to ask the chief questions. When the chief says any questions, he raised his hand the first time. They ask again, any questions? He raised his hand the second time. They asked any questions? He raised his hand the third time. So after a while, the chief says, his name is Ricky Metz. He says, Metz, do you have any questions? And Metz, after that session, that question and answer session with the chief, was out of patrol and never looked back. So it's just being personable.
Okay, well, we do have more questions, which is fantastic. So I want to thank the students for all these fantastic questions that they're bringing. So how hard is it to put on that badge every day?
It's not hard. It's not hard because I know that I'm putting on the badge not just for me. I'm putting on the badge for my family. I'm putting on the badge for my friends. I'm putting on my badge for you guys, because I take pride in this badge. And when I put it on and I go out here and I work and I interact with people, I'm learning more about people and why things are the way they are. It helps me fill in the gap. I used to say bridge the gap. But bridging a gap, that means that someone can come behind me and tear down that bridge. But if I fill in the gap, it's going to be harder to dig out what I've already put down. So it's not hard, especially when I'm motivated to bringing the community and law enforcement back together in a positive and more secure manner.
Okay. Okay, how do you think, with all of the controversies going on with police right now, how will that affect law enforcement in the future?
You know, all of the controversy that's been going on and with COVID and all of these things, a lot of people ask me, has the recruiting effort went down? No, it has increased. It has increased. The month of October, we're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we're closed on the weekends. And I had a total of 52 people either come in and pick up an application or drop off an application. 52. Not to mention numerous phone calls, as well as emails that I've answered. So it is, it's still growing. People still want to be the police. It is still one of the oldest and most noble profession. We cannot let individuals who do not respect themselves. Let me say that the individuals that you see out here that does what they do under the umbrella of law enforcement do not respect themselves. So that's why they feel comfortable doing the things that they're doing, because they don't respect themselves, and individuals don't show the respect that they think they deserve, then they get mad. And this is the reason why we have the issues that we have.
Wow, okay. Okay, so trust and honesty is a big thing in law enforcement. Do you think they do a good job in making sure there's no corrupt police officers?
It's hard. It's hard. A lot of you have friends that you don't know until you know them. You don't know until you know them. We all meet everybody's representative. And what I mean is, the representative is that person that puts up that front or that facade that makes it seem like, oh, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then when you peel back the layers, you realize, whoa, this is not a good person. This is not a good person. People can hide, there's that saying, a wolf in sheep's clothing. There's a lot of wolves in sheep clothing that come in and say they want to be the police, and they have alternative motives, or they got something else in mind once they get on the department. So it's really hard to weed out the bad apples, especially if they've had years of practicing being a good apple.
Okay. How do you feel about segregated police departments? For example, Black officers in Black communities and white officers in white communities.
I feel that police officers policing people. Police officers policing people. Do I feel that there should be a balance? Yes, I do. I do. Do I think that just Black officers need to police Black communities and white officers police just white communities? No. But I think we should all understand that we're all in this world together. And as long as we're in this world together, let's try to learn each other. I consider myself a student of many, a master of none. When I run across and I meet someone, and they're of a different ethnicity or different background, a different culture, I talk to them and I learn things. When I go to my defensive tactics conference, I had some friends from South Dakota that were tribal police. So here's the best time to learn about the American Indians than from someone who was with the tribal police. And then I take that knowledge and I come back to the police department. I have friends that were of Asian descent, Now it's time to ask the questions. And by asking these questions and getting to learn them, I'm able to police everyone. So it's just being diverse.
Okay. Are there many women entering the police academy and working as police officers?
That's a good question. Our female to male ratio is very small. You have to understand that law enforcement has been viewed as a male dominating field, and it's sad. I'm first one to say it. It should be balanced. Our female officers bring something to the table that male officers don't think about. They bring compassion. They bring understanding. They bring communication. They bring those things that we forget. We as males were rah, 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 rah. And a lot of times that female officer comes in and says, hey, can you do me a favor? And that softness in their voice, I've seen them calm down the most uptight person just because they take a moment to understand them. I wish we did have more female police officers in law enforcement. I just discovered St. Louis County has a female officer on the SWAT team, which is awesome. You know, I was pushing and advocating when I was on the SWAT team, a female that tried out for our team. I wanted her on the team bad because she was great. She could do everything we could do, and for some of the officers, she was better than. Not me, but I'm just joking. But I'm just saying, the female officer brings balance. They bring balance to police departments. They honestly, truly do. And it's a balance that all departments need, and all departments really need to start emphasizing their recruitment efforts with female officers. Thus the reason why I created the SHERO program. And I'll say it again, we had the SHERO program. I think we had 22 total females from both North Tech and South Tech, and it was awesome. It was epic. It was epic to have all of the females there. They were able to talk, and they broke off their breakout sessions. And Captain Gibbs is like, when we're doing the next one, and it just so happened that COVID happened, and and I got the sheroes asking me, when we going back to the school, so it bridging that gap right there is just, or closing in that gap was great. That was awesome.
Okay, Sergeant Walters, we have a lot more questions. Are you still okay with answering
I'm
all of
good.
these questions? Okay,
Great.
we really thank you, and these great answers that you're giving. Okay, so do you think it is a good thing to have a good relationship with the community?
Yes, you have to have a strong relationship, not only with community, but I'm gonna throw it out there with the school. In law enforcement, you gotta have a strong relationship with the school as well as the community, because if you want answers to what's going on in communities, you're going to need to be in the community. If you want answers to what's going on with the schools, you need to be in the schools. It is imperative that those connections between the two are strong.
This is a good follow-up to that question. What are some of the things you do to keep the connection with your community, to let them know you are here to serve them and keep them safe?
Honestly, just talk to them when they call. Answer the call. When they say, hey, can I ask you a question? Answer it. A lot of times people ask me questions because of stereotypes. And because of those stereotypes, I'm there to I consider myself to be a liaison. And they'll ask me about something in law enforcement. I'm like, hey, I guess I'm the liaison for the whole law enforcement. So let me give them at least 5 minutes of my time.
Okay. So what do you think, perhaps, do you think that some officers shouldn't be officers? Like they should really look very closely and think hard before hiring certain individuals?
Yes. I wish that honestly there was a way we could vet a little bit more. I really do. I believe that one day we will gravitate to the point where it will be easier to find those officers that backtrack. It'll be easier to find those individuals who do not deserve to be officers. Let me say that, because I don't want to say find those officers, because those individuals, when they do things that they do, they're not doing it as a police officer. They're doing it as an individual.
Okay. So you mentioned policing your neighborhood, the neighborhood where you grew up in the past. What were the challenges? Was it difficult because people knew you?
No, it wasn't. It really was not difficult. Out of uniform, I went back to the neighborhood. I talked to individuals that I knew were not on the same side of right, and I advised them. I simply said, you know what I do, I know what you do. Let's have a common respect that when you see me in my patrol car and I'm patrolling, you have an option. You can leave the area, or I'll have to do my job. Believe it or not, I have personally arrested my nephew that was wanted. I have personally arrested an auntie that was wanted. So I always tell folks, if I can arrest my own family members, I can arrest anybody. But I was very polite about it and no hard feelings, you know. My family just know, hey, I got a job to do. And if you're currently wanted for your criminal activity, I'm sorry, I got to do what I got to do.
Okay, we have two somewhat related questions. So what inspired you to become a police officer, and what was your goal when you became a police officer?
What inspired me to be a police officer was I needed a job. Okay. It just so happened at the time I was in transition between jobs and police came there. But the inspiration and the motivation grew after I got out on the street and I started to really interact with people. And I really started seeing the changes and the benefits, the changes first that I observed from my 8-hour shift. I couldn't say what somebody else did, but when I worked 8 hours, I saw a change. I could see things because I would put little goals every night on myself. And when I achieved those goals that night, it'd be like, great, okay, you know, hey, it's bad. You know, I hate derelict cars parked on the street. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to write tickets until that person either moves that car or they get enough tickets to have that car towed, because it's an eyesore to come out your front door and there's this car with no wheels and no windows. So it's little things that you put, little goals that you set for yourself and you try to achieve them.
Okay, here's a question. Can you describe a very distressing situation in which you remained calm and collected?
I am a hostage negotiator. Okay. The officer, Tamaris Bohannon. Tamaris Bohannon, I taught at the academy. He was one of mine for 6 months. 6 months, 1,200 hours. This kid was one of mine. So I was one of the first negotiators on the scene. And for pretty much almost 8 hours, I was on the phone with the individual that shot and killed Tamaris Bohannon. And being a negotiator, I had to take all of my emotions for an officer. I still get choked up, so excuse me. For an officer that was a father, he had little kids, and he was ambushed. And I'm on the phone with the individual that shot and killed him for 8 hours. And I'm talking to him with the utmost respect. I'm actually on the phone with this individual and talking about his family and how he could still be a father to his kids. knowing what he had done. And I could not let the emotion out in my voice. I had to maintain a sense of composure. I had to maintain a sense of respect. No matter what I was feeling on the inside, I couldn't let it on the outside at that moment. So that was probably one of the most trying points in my career, to where it was the hardest.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, what keeps you going to get up every day and having a risk of losing your life every time you go to the streets to serve this community?
I don't think about it. I keep my head on the swivel. I once you do anything tactical, you're pretty much always tactical. I keep my head on the swivel. I just love going to work. I love what I do. I love what I do. When I was in Mobile Reserve and SWAT, it used to be so much fun that you didn't take a day off, believe it or not, because you come back and they tell you all the stuff that they did, and you're like, man, I missed it. What? Oh, and now you're mad that you don't want to take a day off. You kind of like, hey, I've been off. I'm off this week, and I was off last week, and then the first 2 weeks I've been off all year, except for my scheduled weekends, because it's just, I enjoy what I do. This is me. I enjoy getting up. I enjoy going to work. I love what I do. Like I said, when you love what you do it. It's like those of you that like to bake, you bake. This makes me happy. Despite everything that's going on around me and everything involving law enforcement on the negative end, I individualize those people. I do not say it's the job. I individualize them. That's that individual's problem. But how can I learn from that individual's mistake and turn it into a teaching point? So that's what I usually do. I change it and turn it into a teaching point.
Okay. Can you describe the department's fitness test?
Oh, department fitness test. It's quite simple. Imagine 2 full court basketball courts side by side. You're going to run around that twice. Once you run around that twice, you're going to step over a 1-foot hurdle, and there's also a 2-foot hurdle. You'll go around a cone, you'll go around another cone, and then there's going to be a 3-foot leap, which is literally, you can do it running. You'll walk across a 6-foot balance beam. You'll walk around another cone, go around another cone, lay on your stomach, stand up, lay on your back, stand up. You'll go around another cone, then you'll climb over a 4-foot wall. Go around another cone, go up 6 steps, down 6 steps, up 6 steps, down 6 steps. You'll push in 70 pounds, walk in a half circle, pull out 70 pounds, walk in a half circle. Grab a 25-pound dummy. I'm sorry, 150-pound dummy by either the shirt or the pants or arm, and drag it 25 feet out, 25 feet back. You'll do a 25-yard sprint to where you'll grab a gun and you'll shoot it 5 times with the left hand, 5 times with the right hand. You'll have exactly 3 minutes and 30 seconds to complete. And you can also go on the website, which is slmpd.org, and you can click on careers, and there'll be study guides for the written test, the oral board, as well as the physical abilities test.
I think this student is asking, perhaps when you were growing up, did you have any encounters with law enforcement?
Oh yeah. When I was growing up, I ran from the police all the time. It was a game. My neighborhood is like, there's a police car, we take off running for no reason. And I remember one time we took off running and we're running through alleys and jumping over fences, and they cornered us. And he said, why are you running? And we were like, because it's fun. And the officer said, no, it's dangerous. Don't do that. And I was like, okay, why is it dangerous? Because we think that you're doing something and it will cause us to act in a different way. Don't scare us like that. And as a kid, I'm going, wow, we're scaring the police because we ran. And it made sense. It made a whole lot of sense once I got on the street. So as a kid, I had like with anybody, I had positive encounters with the police. I had negative encounters with the police. But again, it was that individual who chose to do more than what the job required.
Okay, and this might be the last student question that we have. How good should your psychological health be as an officer?
We all have encountered things. We're in a society where violence is on TV, violence is in video games, violence is right outside some of our doors. So our psychological well-being, you honestly, if you feel that you have anything going on with you psychologically, because I am a big advocate of anything that goes on with your mental health, seek the help. Seek the help. I've encouraged it to officers. Myself, Captain Gibbons, Sergeant Hines, we've seen so much, because remember, we're law enforcement. We see maybe on an 8-hour day, we may see a fatality from a car accident. Then once we're done with that, we'll go to a shooting. Then from that, we may go to a house fire that's got, God forbid, kids inside. And then from that, we got to go to the hospital and take a report from a domestic assault person. Then we may have to, while we're at the hospital, go down the hall and talk to a kid who was abused. And guess what? We go home, go to sleep, and then we got to get up and do it all over again. And sometimes we forget to talk about it, let it go. We carry what happened the night before into the next day, and then to the next day, and then to the next day, to the point where 5 years later, we snap because we're not even dealing with our own issues, our own problems. When you become a police officer, you will become a question answer box for everybody that you know. You will lose your identity. You will lose your name. People will introduce you and they'll tell everybody, oh, this is my friend Donnell. He's a police officer. And that person's going to have 10 questions for you. They're going to have 10 different questions. And you'll say, quite often, I always tell them, I say, I'm a police officer only on the weekends. And it's my little joke. So it's like, they'll say, you're a police officer? Nope, I just play one on TV. Just so I do not get the questions. And that's my mental balance. I deal with, I discovered some years ago that I had pretty much the post-traumatic stress injury because I never let go all the things that I saw and done. But when I let it go, it sparked me to not be afraid to talk about it. It didn't change me. It actually helped me. It didn't prohibit me from doing anything on the job. I didn't get pulled from anything. I'm still the lead negotiator for the hostage negotiation team, pretty much the training coordinator. I still teach defensive tactics. And I tell them, hey, I deal with mental issues. It's okay. I don't take medication because I learned how to do it through what I call talk therapy. Admitting that you have the problem, that's your first step, and talking about it. And I'm encouraging more officers, hey, talk about it. Don't be afraid to say, today has just been a bad day for me. I started wellness checks Wednesdays. And this is where I talk to and I reach out to officers and I just say, hey, just checking in on you. How you doing? And I remember I missed one wellness check Wednesday and my phone on Thursday, like, what happened? I didn't get my wellness check Wednesday. I was like, whoa. And it was just the fact that somebody checked in on them just to say, hey, are you okay today? How's your day going? Some of them give me a thumbs up. Some of them give me a thumbs down. I'll call. What's going on? Let's talk about it. And they just vent. And I just listen. So it's okay. If you have something going on psychologically, get your help now. You guys are young enough, and mental health issues do not have an age range. We all have it. We just have it in different ways. We see things in a different light. Mr. Chandler, counselor, every day when schools are open, he's got how many problems a day being brought to him? You think he stops at 4 o'clock and go, well, I'm out of here, not gonna think about anybody's issues. No, he's at home and he's trying to figure out each kid's problem and how to address it. So when he comes back the next day, he's giving them something. But nobody really says, Mr. Chandler, how are you today? I did, because I do not want to mutilate your last name. Same thing, Sally, same as you, being an administrator. You got the board, you got everybody coming at you, plus students. So you're in the middle where people are coming from the top and the bottom. And guess what? You got to go home. You still got to deal with family. So we all have things going on mentally. It's just how we handle them and deal with them and admit that we have them. That's how we deal with these mental issues and the things that go on with us internally.
Excellent answer. All of this is so important for all of us to hear, but it's really important for our students to hear as they consider what they're going to be doing after they graduate from high school. So I don't see any other questions. Are there any other thoughts or questions from anyone on our panel?
You did fantastic, man. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
I want to piggyback that. Yeah, thank you so much. Just outstanding. Great job, man. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Really, we really appreciate your time, Sergeant Walters. I can't thank you enough.
Hey, I'm always here for you guys, no matter what. I'm a phone call away. Like I said, I will clear the schedule for my 2 favorite schools. For the record, I will clear the schedule for North and South Tech.
That's awesome. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think this will conclude our session. You all have a good evening and
All righty.
take care.
Take care.
Great
Bye-bye.
to see you.
You too.